2023 business session minutes.
Thank you very much. Any questions on that? All right, item number 2, please.
Resolution number 055-23, consider approving and adopting resolution number 055-23, modifying the fiscal year FY 2023 budget, resolution number 064-22, and approving a modified 2023 Johnson County J.C. pay table representing an average change of 6.1%. Approve a market pay adjustment for all eligible employees under the J.C. pay table to align with market and comply with the county's pay philosophy as approved by the Board of County Commissioners, and authorize the reallocation and expenditure of FY 2023 reserves in the amount not to exceed $8,024,950 as shown in Attachment 1.
All right, Brent Christensen is here for the presentation. Brent, good afternoon.
Brent Christensen, Director of Financial Management, Interim Director of Human Resources, and with me is Deanne Osmond, who is our HR Manager of Compensation. She'll handle all the tough questions. So with that, the proposed action is a result of the Compensation and Benefit Survey of the Board authorized in May of 2022. The county contracted with Salary.com to execute the survey over the summer and fall of 2022. Analysis was based on the results from those participating from the 19 peer comparators that were included in the May 2022 board agenda packet as our peer local governments that we would compare ourselves to, as well as our KC metro area. The market analysis is based on the median or the 50th percentile, which is the BOCC's compensation policy. As mentioned in the Committee of the Whole meeting on February 23rd of this year, the study results indicated that our current pay structure is below market, not competitive, and not aligned with the board's policy to have consistent with the median of the established market. Also, during our Committee of the Whole meeting on May 18th, we shared that the county manager is proposing a market adjustment, and the budget office validated that the estimated cost of the market alignment is within the five-year forecast. Staff has been very deliberate and thorough in communicating these results and have met with you on several different occasions on this matter. One proposal for immediate compensation adjustment was for targeted positions in corrections, JCDS, mental health, and the DA's office, which was approved by the board on April 6th. Those changes weren't in immediately to help correct some areas that had significantly below market and had significant vacancies that impacted operations. Additionally, staff presented information on the emergency services market review and recommendations for pay structure changes to the Board of Committee of the Whole meeting on March 23rd. Action related to those recommendations are the next agenda item I have, which is Resolution 056-23 presented. On March 30th of this year, the County Economic Research Institute, or CERI, presented their economic update for the county, and besides reporting the county's low unemployment rate, which is 2.5 in January of 23, they also shared a 6.6 jump in average weekly wages for third quarter 2022 compared to third quarter 2021. I mention that because that is the same time frame that the comp and benefit survey data was being collected and aligns closely with the proposed action. As mentioned in the briefing sheet, the modified JC 2023 pay table, attachment 4, represented an average of 6.1% across all pay ranges, grades 11 through 28, which is comparable to the CERI data. If approved, staff recommends a July 9th start date for the modified JC pay table and related market pay adjustments. Slide 6 reflects the current and proposed new structure of the 2023 JC pay table. If approved, as recommended by staff, nearly 42% of the employees receive between 2 and 3%, and 46% receive between 3 and 10%. We have some positive indicators as a result of the targeted adjustments approved on April 6th that we'd like to share. Just this week, JCDS held a job fair and reported that they had a successful job fair earlier this week. Candidates arrived before the start of the fair, and the fair was extended by 30 minutes to ensure we could meet with each one. A total of 36 on-the-spot interviews were conducted, and staff was hopeful they'll be able to fill many of those remaining vacancies. Sarah Schlitter, Director of Residential Services, indicated that she firmly believes that the recent market study had a direct impact on the success of the job fair. The experience at JCDS is consistent with what we are seeing with other targeted jobs. Applications increased significantly after implementation of the targeted jobs salary increases. The average number of applications received each week for the youth and adult correctional advisor jobs has increased by 19% in the last 7 weeks since the implementation. And application for the direct service providers have increased by 34% in that same time period. The average number of applications received each week for all targeted jobs is an aggregate increase of 45%. In the 8 months since the implementation of the sheriff's new step pay plan, they had a net gain of 13 employees, just for comparison. The $7.6 million is estimated as use of reserve for the rest of fiscal 2023 based on the market adjustments. This slide represents the dollar amount that may be needed by each fund. The budget office will be working and looking for departments to fund these increases from vacancies and other budgetary savings before we ask or move fund reserves. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Christensen. And thank you to staff for presenting this now to us. I'd be close to the 10th time. I appreciate it's good information, and I'm glad to support it. Commissioner Allenbrand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Christensen, thank you for this presentation. Couple of questions. So would this include every department, the sheriff, the DA, everybody within the county?
Yeah, good question. So this particular motion is just for classified jobs, which is the majority of our organization. But in October, that was the sworn staff. So they have their own pay plan. That's what you approved. So that's the sworn officers. But the other classified staff, so like admin staff and some of the correctional folks in the sheriff's office, they're part of this group, okay? And then the other folks that are excluded that we're going to talk about next item is our MedAct folks, our 24/7 folks.
Okay. And then when did you say this would go into effect if it's voted?
We're requesting a July 9th effective date.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm looking at slide 7 with the average increase by grade levels. I'm assuming that does not include the sheriff's office.
It does not include the sworn sheriff office.
Okay, because so just for clarification, we've already done 2 compensation adjustments in the last several months. One for the sheriff, where we changed that to a step plan.
Correct.
And then one for the targeted positions. And so the targeted positions are included in this average increase by grade levels on slide 7.
Yes.
Do we?
Back to slide 7 real quick. I'm sorry.
Can I clarify your answer? I think a portion of it is in this, because we took action in April for the targeted jobs. We did an average increase of, I think, 15% for those targeted jobs, JCDS corrections, et cetera, and you heard the results of JCDS so far since that action in April. This is the second part of those targeted jobs, so it makes those affected positions about over a 17% increase, but just that second part's in this action. Is that correct, Deanne?
Yes. And can you provide what was the average increase for the positions in the sheriff's department? I don't know if you have that, or
Yep.
if you could have that next week, that would be.
Yeah. The average increase for the 421 positions in the sheriff's office was 29.7%.
So 29.7%, okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Christensen, excuse me, I have a number of questions on both these items. If we could visit before next week, I would appreciate it.
I promise I'll be there.
You're not needed. She can take it. No, I'm kidding. Yes, that'd be good.
All right. We'll keep this one on action for next week. And Mr. Christensen, stay right there. And if the clerk would read item number 3 into the record.
Resolution number 056-23, consider approving and adopting resolution number 056-23, modifying resolution number 029-23, and approving a modified 2023 Emergency Services ES pay table, and approve a 2% range movement adjustment for all eligible employees under the ES pay table that were originally approved as part of the FY 2023 budget resolution, and authorize the reallocation and expenditure of FY 2023 general fund reserves in an amount not to exceed $162,721.
Mr. Christensen.
All right, Brent Christensen again. This request, is, as I mentioned, is separate from the previous one. Whereas Resolution 05523 is related to the salary and benefit survey results from salary.com, this action item is related to the EMS staff that I mentioned earlier. That's in our Department of Emergency Services. At the March 23rd Committee of the Whole meeting this year, staff presented on the market review and recommendations for emergency services. During that presentation, staff presented that the county's current ES, or Emergency Services Pay Table, which is their use for their merit pay structure, is inconsistent with the industry standards after a local market compensation review. The local market compensation review indicated that all surveyed peers utilized a step pay plan, which is popular with local fire departments and recently with the sworn officers that we did back in October 22 in the sheriff's office. In addition, the county's pay rates are below market and the emergency services for the emergency services first responders. In working in collaboration with the Director of Emergency Services, staff is recommending a step pay plan implementation for emergency services for the beginning of 2024. Due to the time needed to develop the program and build the step plan in our ERP system, it was necessary to delay that implementation right now. Staff is recommending a transitional step, whereas the current emergency services pay table midpoint moves 2%, and the county provides all affected employees under the ES pay table a 2% across the board range movement adjustment effective July 9 of this year. The estimated impact of the 2% range movement adjustment is just under $163,000 for the rest of 23, and we're looking for the Department of Emergency Services to help cover that cost and vacancy savings and other budgetary savings before the use of reserves. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Christensen. Questions on this one? Obviously, Commissioner Ashcraft, this is something you can discuss in your
I'll bring lunch.
meeting.
I'll bring lunch.
Oh, well, if lunch is on the table. No, thank you very much, Mr. Christensen. We'll see this one on action next week. And I'd ask clerk then to read item number 4, please.
Consider authorizing the publication of a proposed budget for Johnson County government in the amount of, to be determined for fiscal year 2024, notifying the county clerk of the proposed intent to exceed the revenue neutral rate, and setting a public hearing on the proposed budget for Monday, August 21st, 2023, at 6 p.m. in the board chambers.
Thank you very much. Leadership graduate Robin Symes here with us today.
Thank you. Robin Symes with Budget and Financial Planning. As the clerk mentioned, this item does 3 things. It sets the maximum expenditure budget. It also notifies the county clerk of exceeding the revenue neutral rate, and then it sets our public hearing date. The board has met 6 times so far this year to discuss the budget, and we'll meet for a 7th this afternoon. There are 2 budget open houses, one tonight in this building from 5:30 to 7, and one on June 27th at the Northeast offices, also from 5:30 to 7. We will have a public hearing and revenue neutral rate hearing on August 21st, and then the final adoption will be August 31st. We won't have the final numbers, that's why you see the X's, until we've met this afternoon in case there are changes based on the revisit list items that will be presented. And then again, really just procedural until next week, but this does set the maximum. After we set the maximum, we cannot increase, we can only decrease the budget. This does not approve the budget, it only sets the publication for the budget.
All right. Commissioner Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Symes, will you also be providing the revenue neutral amounts and the revenue neutral plus growth amounts that we've talked about?
Yes, once we have those. Currently, as we go through and we'll finalize once we get everything. The revenue neutral rate for the county Currently, our proposed levy is 17.522. The revenue neutral rate would be 15.96. That would require a reduction of almost $23 million to the county budget, county taxing district. For parks, the proposed levy is 3.021. The revenue neutral rate is 2.713, and I'll get you this, I just kind of wanted to give you a
You're going
good
too
feel
fast. But
for
does that include the
understanding.
revenue neutral plus growth?
That does not include growth, that is just the revenue
Yeah,
neutral.
I'd like to know what that,
Okay.
because there is a,
We can verbally give you that. Obviously, the revenue neutral rate will be set, and so that's what our numbers will have to be based on, but
No,
we can
that's
add in the
fine.
growth.
That's-
Correct. But just in general terms, for the county, it would be about a $23 million reduction. Park and Recreation, it would be 4.5 million, and for the library, it would be about 4.4 million for us to get to revenue neutral.
Thank you. Robin, can you do me a favor? And can you remind folks, what does revenue neutral mean?
Yes. So what revenue neutral rate means is it looks at your ad valorem tax levied from the prior year. If you levy $1 more in property taxes, then you are exceeding the revenue neutral rate. So how the county clerk, how they calculate it is they look at what you levied from the prior year, and then they take your new valuation for this year. And so that is how they calculate the revenue neutral rate. It's taking that ad valorem tax from the prior year based on the new valuation, and then that's the rate that you use. So it's, if you levy $1 more, then you will exceed the revenue neutral rate. And it also does not factor in any new growth.
Thank you. It's not just taking the total number of the budget
Correct.
and looking at the total number of the past budget, because that can include a lot of different things other than ad valorem tax.
Correct.
Over which we're not going to affect by setting the budget in terms of a mill levy increase or a reduction. Could be fee-based services. It could be capital improvement for wastewater, for example. Right? Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Ellenbrand?
Thank you for that, and I think one key is, it doesn't take care of growth either, so.
Correct.
Could you, the numbers that you provide to Commissioner Ashcraft, could you provide them to all of us?
Yes, I can go ahead and email that out. After this afternoon, we'll get a better feel for exactly what those numbers are. We'll work through that, and then we should be able to get it to you,
Thank you
hopefully
so
this
much.
weekend.
Great job.
Yes.
Commissioner Fast?
Yeah, all the things you said, I get so many calls, emails, meetings every week of constituents about their property taxes, and now I'm getting about the revenue neutral rate.
Yes.
So I've got to be able, and I'm constantly getting requests to speak at homeowners associations, so I've got to be able to articulate everything you said, what the chairman said, so I really would like that in writing.
And I think we've talked with Penny. I think we're going to work with Jody, and we will come up with some kind of platform. We do have a board tonight. Also, for the public, if they come through, we're going to be able to walk through that with them and also walk through, how their property taxes are broken down, for them to be able to look it up and to actually be able to show, this is where your property taxes go. But I agree. We're going to probably highlight that a little bit more, especially in the upcoming weeks with the budget.
And I'd ask you for that other information.
Yes, and we have those graphs. Again, yes.
Commissioner O'Hara?
Thank you. I believe the number, the average with taking in consideration of the quarter mil rollback, the average increase in property taxes will be approximately 10% across the board.
Yes, I believe 10.
So 10%. That's what's making folks cranky. 10% property tax increase, and it's just year after year after year after year. Without the rollback, I believe that it would have been an average of over an 11%. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe so. It's
Okay.
ranging between, yes.
So, we can talk about revenue neutral, we can talk about revenue neutral plus growth, and we can confuse and try to cloud the issue, but when you get right down to it, it's that 10% property tax increase. You can't hide from it. And we will be hearing more and more from the folks because it's just getting really, really expensive to live in Johnson County. And I really thought that Gayleen Van Horn, she talked about her house is paid off, she is in retirement, and it's still costing her $650 a month to live in her house just with taxes and insurance. Thank you.
Commissioner Hansley?
Yes, and I appreciate what Commissioner Fast said because I've also been addressing those questions, and what I have found is there's a lot of confusion about which property taxes we have control over. And I always remind people, on average, the county collects about 20%, or keeps about 20% of your property tax bill. About 80% goes primarily to the schools, to the cities, and some other places. But I've told people, even if we had a zero mill levy, you would still have 80% of your taxes to pay. So please bear that in mind. And you would have no ambulance service, limited, in some areas, fire services, no mental health services, no developmental support services. So I think it's important to keep that in mind, that there are increased expenses to continue these extremely important services that are life-saving for people. So trying to emphasize the many, many services that we provide, and that this budget really is just a bare bones budget. We're not adding all kinds of new services. We are just keeping up with the ability to provide the services that the residents of Johnson County expect and need from the county.
I'm sure we'll have a really robust conversation about this next week, so we'll keep it on action and ask.
Chairman, just one more question. So next week, I mean, we're just making the decision to publish.
Right.
Correct.
Okay,
We're
just
not
wanna-
adopting the
It is
budget
not an
next week.
approval.
It's basically procedure.
Because people are like, vote no. I just got
Yeah.
calls right now. I mean, vote
Who's
no.
doing that?
But that'd be voting no and not publishing it.
Correct.
Right, and this is publishing the maximum. And so helping keep good information out there is our job as commissioners. So if we could all keep good information out there and be honest, that's important.
Yes, and again, we'll have the public hearing, and then the vote will not be until August 31st.
All right. Would the clerk read item number 5?
Sitting as the Fire District Number 2 Governing Board. Consider authorizing the publication of a proposed budget for the Johnson County Fire District Number 2 in the amount of, to be determined, for fiscal year 2024, notifying the county clerk of the proposed intent to exceed the revenue neutral rate, and setting a public hearing on the proposed budget for Thursday, August 24th, 2023, at 9:30 a.m. in the board chambers.
All right, Jim Francis from the Department of Emergency Services is here. Mr. Francis, welcome.
Chairman, Commissioners, thank you. So for this item, you're sitting as the governing body of Fire District Number 2. You will be setting the maximum expenditures for the 2024 proposed budget, scheduling the public hearing for August 24th at 9:30 a.m. You'll also be authorizing publishing of this budget and putting out notice of intent to exceed the revenue neutral rate. At this point, we're still literally doing number gathering for this budget, so I don't have defined numbers for you. I've got estimates that hope to be wrapped up in the next few days. We anticipate a general fund mill levy reduction of about $0.25 mil, or 0.25. We anticipate a total mill levy reduction of slightly over $0.5 mil. We are putting, as I stated last week, we're adding additional principal payment to the 2015 bond of $150,000. As I also stated last week, there is a clause in our Miami County Fire Agreement, which next year is year 2 of a 5-year agreement. There's a clause in there that indicates if their assessed valuation came up 15% or higher for any 1 year, Fire District 2 reserves the right to renegotiate the remaining payments for all of those following future years. I did contact the county administrator this morning. We do have a meeting scheduled Monday. I do plan to renegotiate that rate, so I anticipate we're going to get a little more than what that agreement states right now. They had an 18.6% increase, and 15 was the cap in the agreement. So we'll be discussing that more next week. The Spring Hill assessed valuation, which determines the contract payment from Spring Hill, It came up much higher than I anticipated. So it came up about $10 million for the entire service area that we provide service to. That contract payment is based off Fire District 2's general fund mill levy times that assessed valuation. The revenue neutral rate for Fire District 2 is 12.662. We would have to cut approximately $400,000 ad valorem tax to hit that revenue neutral rate. Stand for questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Francis. And when you do have those final numbers in advance of next Thursday, if you'd send them to the board, we'd sure appreciate it. And I think you'll get the request consistent with the prior item to send over the numbers as it would be with a revenue neutral rate and a net revenue neutral rate plus growth. So if you'd include those, we'd appreciate it. Commissioner Ashcraft?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Francis, I didn't call you chief this time. Mr. Francis, if you could also work with Ms. Symes and consider providing us the revenue neutral rate, but also factor in growth, especially in the unincorporated areas. There's been quite a bit. I'd like to know what that impact would be. Is that possible? I know you're on a pretty tight timeline, and it's difficult potentially to get some of that information, but that would be helpful.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Francis.
Thank you.
All right. Item number 6, please.
Resolution number 051-23, approve and adopt resolution number 051-23, authorizing the sale of approximately $16,840,000 principal amount of general obligation internal improvement bonds of Johnson County, Kansas, on August 9th, 2023 for airport improvements.
Leslie Friedel here from Budget to help us on this one. Ms. Friedel, good afternoon.
Hi, I'm Leslie Friedel from Budget and Financial Planning, and this item is primarily to set the sale date of August 9th, and then we would come back before the board on August 10th for formal approval. We are planning on issuing approximately $16,840,000 in bonds to pay for the infrastructure costs associated with the first phase of New Century Commerce Center, and then also for 50% of the land that we purchased a few years ago. And so the cost that we would be bonding on that land is like approximately $3,245,000. And there will be a taxable component to this particular bonds. It's roughly a 69-70% tax exempt, 30-31% taxable. And we will be bringing forth those two issues when we come forward in August.
Thank you very much. Commissioner O'Hara.
Can you explain why there's a portion of it that's taxable and a portion that's not?
The portion where the leasehold improvements are located is considered taxable, so where the buildings are, basically, the Van Trust. And then the infrastructure, like the streets, the other improvements would be tax exempt because they're for public use.
Thank you.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Friedel, just for public information, could you tell us what the source of funds are to retire the debt?
So the source of funds for this, I did not mention that, and so thank you for the question, would be the airport enterprise fund, operating fund, and the principal will be deferred, and it will start in roughly 26, I think, or 2030, I'm sorry, 2030. We will have an option to call those bonds sooner, but they are going to be 30-year term bonds, which is the first time as a county we've done this. And I should also note that this is the first time in my recollection that we are selling GO bonds without wastewater improvements attached to them.
Okay. And those monies will be generated from leases and rents?
And the payment in lieu of taxes, the pilots and the leasehold rents on the property.
Very good. Thank you.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Is this interest only because of the rate that we're anticipating because of the market
It was always anticipated to be interest-only the first few years because we are working with the developer to get the revenues come in to match the amount of the debt
Okay,
service.
thank
So
you.
that's why we're phasing in. There are 4 phases, if you remember, to this proposed development, and I think they're already starting on Phase 2, and then Phase 3 is included in your proposed FY '24 budget, at least the project creation for that project.
What is the anticipated rate?
We are looking at 4.6% for tax exempt and 5.6% for the taxable on this. And that is largely because of the 30-year term and the current market. Like I say, we are including an option to call those at a pretty early date, roughly the 10-year mark on a 30-year, which is, again, this is the first time we've done this. So if the market does improve, we would have some options there to refinance at better rates.
All right. Thank you very much. We will keep this on action, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 7, please.
Resolution number 052-23, consider authorizing Johnson County government to opt in to the Deferred Retirement Option Program, DROP, administered by the Kansas Public Employees Retirement System, KPERS, allowing Kansas Police and Fire, KPF, members to initiate the calculation of retirement benefits, but continue working for 3 to 5 years, the DROP period, before separating from employment.
Mr. Christensen, welcome back.
Good afternoon, Brent Christensen, Financial Management and Administration. In May, the governor signed into law the expansion of the KPERS Deferred Retirement Option Plan called the DROP program among all KPF police and firemen members effective July 1 of 2023. This started in 2015 as a pilot program with the Kansas Highway Patrol, and then it was extended to the Kansas Bureau of Investigation in 2019. So this has been extended now to all KPF members to January 1st of 2031. Basically, the DROP program allows retirement-eligible KPF members to continue to work for a period of time and earn their salaries while also receiving their retirement benefits at the same time. The pension benefit would be deposited in what they would call a DROP account until the retiree completes their DROP period, which is 3 to 5 years, or separates from the county. So the overall goal from a county perspective is to incentivize staff who are eligible for full retirement, in essence, who are very experienced staff, kind of towards the end of their careers, but to defer retirement for a period during that drop time so that they can help in covering some of our vacancy needs that are both in the sheriff's office or in emergency services. This expansion should help from that perspective as we increase retirements for both those departments. And so hopefully it will help in the loss of senior staff and the declining numbers of law enforcement academy and paramedic school graduates, because those numbers are down as well. Both the sheriff and the director of emergency services are supportive. They believe they would help them keep some senior personnel and ensure proper supervision and guidance with their less experienced staff. The approval of this resolution is authorizing the county to participate in the KPERS DROP program and delegating the appointed authority role to the sheriff and the director of emergency services, who will be responsible for approving the additional years of service after retirement for their respective departments. No additional funding is requested. The KPF employer contribution rates for the DROP retiree is the same as non-retiree. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Commissioner Ashcraft?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Christensen, just a clarification. In the issue statement, you talk about 3 to 5 years, but in the background, you say 3, 4, or 5 years. Is there a difference between 3, 4, or 5? And does that mean someone couldn't work 2 years or 1 year? I mean, I'm just trying to figure out what that window means.
The minimum is 3 years, and you could go up to 5.
So they would have to work a minimum.
They could ask for another year or two on top of that.
Okay, that's why. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions on this one? Might I suggest consent?
I'd be okay with it.
Again, I think it's just good for the folks. I mean, it's not going to take 5 minutes to just, because folks are not watching agenda review, they're watching the normal business. It's not a race to see how quickly we can get through the agenda.
I don't think,
I don't think there's any race per se. I think a consent agenda is a healthy item, but I don't know that we need to fight about this today. We'll keep it on to action and invite the clerk to read item number 8.
Resolution number WD 23-017, conduct a public hearing and consider authorizing funds in an amount not to exceed $1,631,600, increasing the total authorization to $1,812,600 for the construction phase of the Brush Creek Sanitary Sewer Relocation and Capacity Upgrade Project, and consider entering into an agreement with the City of Prairie Village for the Johnson County wastewater to reimburse the city for the work.
Ms. McCarrick, welcome back.
Hi, Chairman and Commissioner, Susan Ficaric with Wastewater. So we were here in May, and the board authorized the design and bid phase funding for this project. This project is being led by the City of Prairie Village. They're doing a flood control project to raise about 1,200 feet of Mission Road, which you see outlined in kind of that light blue there. And we have infrastructure that is currently located within the city's right-of-way, and so that will have to be relocated as part of the project. At the same time, while we're relocating that, we have an opportunity to do some capacity enhancements. And so that red line is what you see that will be relocated, and then we'll also, as I said, do the capacity enhancements. The city, so this request is for funding to reimburse the city and enter into an agreement that provides for that reimbursement. The city has approved this agreement on May 15th, and they've selected their contractor. And so this request then will be for the board to authorize the funds and enter into the agreement so that we can do the same for the construction of the project.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. McCarrick, will we be actually approving the work so that we know we're getting, I'm sure Prairie Village would not short the pipe, but are we involved in that?
Yes, yes, exactly. Included in the request, we also have resident project services, resident observatory services, excuse me. So yes, we'll have someone out there on site.
Thank you.
All right. Further questions? This is a public hearing. It'll remain on action, and we'll see you next week.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Item number 9, please.
Consider authorizing an increase in contract expenditure authority for countywide term and supply contracts with B Design Group, Dake Wells Architecture, Finkel plus Williams Architecture, SFS Architecture, and the Clark Anderson Partners for on-call architectural services in an amount not to exceed $1,500,000 for a total contract expenditure authority of $3 million for the current contract term, November 22nd, 2022 to November 21st, 2023, with an additional one-year renewal option at the original authorization of $1,500,000 annually.
Mr. Barron, welcome back.
Thank you. Tony Barron, Director of Facilities Management. Yes, this request for increase directly ties into the next item on agenda review based on the Sunflower Fire Station. We are using the term and supply contract for design, with the initial study on that, and we are looking to move into a design phase, which would, this request, if approved, would allow us to move forward with the Sunflower Fire Station design. I'll stand for any questions.
Commissioner Allenbrand, excuse me.
thank you, Mr. Chair. So this money is something the commission has already approved to use on the Sunflower Fire Station, correct?
Currently, we have, I believe, $500,000 already approved, a project authorized to move forward with our initial studies and come up with a schematic design, and this increase will allow us to go forward with construction design on that project.
I guess I mean the total amount. We've already approved money towards this project, so now we're just taking.
The authorization to use it, that is
Okay.
correct.
And we're keeping a close eye on it, right?
Yes.
Thank you, Tony.
Go ahead now, sir.
Mr. Barron, clarify term and supply contract, and there are multiple I guess there are multiple groups. It's not just one big, long name, right?
That is correct.
Okay.
There are
So
four.
how will they actually be selected to do the work? Will they offer different design options and bid against each other? And I use that term advisedly, but compete against each other to make sure we get the best value? Or do they have specialties, and there's one that does fire stations and that's the one that's going to get it?
Yes, Mr. Connor, on the next item, I believe, can dive into the details of that. Commissioner Ashcraft, he will speak to that. I think he has more details of that than I can offer.
Well, but generally, when you have a pool of architects like this, will they, when you use them, do you base that upon the value that they offer or the expertise that they offer, or some combination?
That is correct, yes. So there are certain firms on this list that we know or have previous experience in doing certain types of work. So with that being said, that will reflect in the next item when we hear it from Mr. Connor that we are in the process of choosing a firm that has experience with fire stations and also putting together proposals within our terms and supply contract that allow us to vet this particular firm out, if that makes sense.
I suspect I'm not asking my question correctly, so maybe before next week we could visit offline.
Correct.
Thank you.
Commissioner O'Hara?
Thank you. So we've allocated $500,000 towards the design of this fire station previously, is that correct?
It was authorized to do an initial study and a schematic design just basically a study to see what initial square footage needs were in programming.
And so now we're taking that up on $1.5 million, so it's going to be over $2 million for the design phase, including the initial.
Up to $2 million right now is the authorization we do.
And these expenses normally are the fire district's expenses, correct?
Do not have an answer to that question. I don't know if I understand the question.
Well, this is in Fire District, the Northwest Fire District. And so this is normally the fire district's expense and not the general fund's expense. Is that correct?
I believe per a previous MOU that the county dedicated funds, and this is coming out of county funds.
Yes, correct. So this is coming out of county funds too, which is not typical.
I don't know what typical is, I'm sorry.
Fire district expenses are under fire district expenses. So anyway, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll keep this one on action. We'll see you next week.
Darn, I tried to get it.
No, you didn't. And next, item number 10, please.
Consider authorizing an increase of $1,500,000 to the Sunflower Fire Station project, bringing the new total project authorization to an amount not to exceed $2 million from a reallocation of general fund reserves, countywide support funds in the amount of $1,500,000 to fund the design phase of the fire station project to be located near the intersection of Lexington Avenue and 102nd Street at the former Sunflower Army Ammunition Plant, and to approve a contract with SFS Architecture for design services for a total amount not to exceed $1,543,000, utilizing the Architectural Term and Supply Contract, RFP 2019-078.
Mr. Connor, welcome.
Good afternoon, Chair, Commissioners. Joe Connor, Assistant County Manager. I'm going to tag team this item with facilities because it does have a component with our term and supply contract included with it. I also wanted to recognize Chief Todd Maxton, who is here from the Northwest Consolidated Fire District. So this issue has two different components to it. The first is to increase the authorization for this project. As stated previously, there has been an approval of up to $500,000 for this first phase. We want to move to the second phase. And that's in accordance with the memorandum of understanding that was approved by this body on December 15th of 2022. A little bit of the history. It's in the background of the briefing sheet, but I want to just go over it briefly. So going back to February 10th of 2022, there was a pre-development agreement with, at that time, called Sunflower Redevelopment Corp. to set aside acreage for a fire station for the Northwest Consolidated Fire District. On July 28th of 2022, $7.5 million was allocated by the board for such construction of a fire station for the Northwest District. And then again, on December 15th, we executed an MOU with the Northwest Fire District and authorized up to $500,000 of the initial design services. So we're here today to move this project forward into the final design phase. We've had movement with the now called Astor Enterprise Park as far as identifying the ground. The boundaries have been kind of set. We're having a meeting next week with them actually to start to finalize what the site will look like. We have the general area identified. And again, the design phase is kind of the next iteration of what the fire station will be for that particular district. I did want to mention, because I'm assuming I would get asked this, I'm just going to go ahead and mention it, that the funding partner for this particular project is being worked on with the city of DeSoto. They are in their final phases of what that looks like and what they're going to ask the Panasonic group for. We have been asked for some final numbers on operations for the district, the cost of a new fire truck, and the cost for the station. So we've provided final numbers just recently, which tells me that they are kind of getting close to making an announcement. So again, we've agreed to up to the design phase. This is what we're asking for today. We expect more information to come in the next month or so, announcing kind of what the budget will be, who the funding partner is, and how we can move that project forward into 24, 25, and 26. And then I'll let Kyle, for someone from facilities, talk about the term and supply and how we got to select the vendor that we're requesting approval for.
Very good.
Thank you, Joe. Hello, my name is Kyle with Facilities Management. And as related to the previous item and mentioned in the second part of the issue statement on this briefing sheet, we're requesting approval to work with SFS Architecture for design services for the fire station utilizing our term and supply contract. So hopefully to answer some of your questions, Mr. Ashcraft, facilities requested proposals from all 5 architectural firms on the county's term and supply, and we evaluated those on project approach, firm personnel, quality of similar work, applicable resources, and cost. So staff from facilities, emergency services, and the Northwest Consolidated Fire District evaluated and reviewed the 3 proposals that we received and are recommending award to SFS Architecture. So I'm looking a little bit ahead here. Facilities anticipates coming back to this board in the upcoming months on items related to the construction piece of it. So with that, I will stand for questions.
Thank you for that clarification.
And thank you very much to both of you for not only anticipating the questions regarding term and supply, but going through the history a little bit about this project and the partnership with the City of DeSoto, with the Northwest Fire Board, as well as with Panasonic for what is anticipated to be a catalytic project for Johnson County and for the metropolitan region, for the state of Kansas. And I commend this board for doing its part in July of 2022. I obviously wasn't a member then, but I support that, and I'm glad that we're continuing that partnership today and keeping along that timeline to help provide a safe community given the growth in this sector. So thank you all very much. Open to some questions. First from Commissioner Allenbrand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for saying that, because it's not also the welfare of the entire county, but also the people that live in the unincorporated area and also in DeSoto as well and surrounding area. And I want to thank Mr. Connor, and was Kyle your name? I didn't.
Yes, Kyle.
Kyle, I should call you by your last name, but I want to thank you for your help, because it always makes me feel better when you guys are a part of the project. And also Chief Maxwell and Chief Francis for all the work. This just didn't happen overnight. And the other thing I want to say, there are certain architectural firms that specialize in different areas, and you definitely want to pick the right architectural firm to be designing this state-of-the-art fire station. So I want to thank you for all your work, and I know that, Mr. Connor, you're keeping a close eye, along with Chief Francis, on the budget and where the money's going, and I know Chief Maxwell does as well, so thank you for that. It's good to see this coming now. And I think it almost ended up on 14 acres, close to 14 acres.
We were given a 14-acre tract to evaluate. We went back and asked them for 7 of that 14.
Okay.
They've agreed
So it went
to that
from
in
5 to 7.
principle, yeah.
And then also eventually MedAct can be in there as well. And then, I was gonna say something else, but I guess it wasn't.
MedAc's in the plan to be in it today, so
Oh, great, okay, all right. And then also, are they gonna be able to help in any grading, or is that something you're talking to them with your
that's
meeting?
part of the discussions we want to
Okay.
have with them on
Thank you.
the site
Thank you
costs.
so much.
You bet.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Thank you. I think that this is an example of Commissioner Ashcraft's concerns about when you give away all the tax base, which the city of DeSoto, I believe it's a $200 million tax increment finance district for Panasonic, which is a 20-year property tax that is being funneled back to the project. When you decimate the tax base, somebody has to step up and pay for the infrastructure, and that will be the good folks of Johnson County. Thank you. I'm looking forward to the economic bonanza that will decrease the property taxes for folks.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, gentlemen. Item 11, please.
Resolution number 053-23, consider the creation of the Sustainability Coalition for the purpose of encouraging environmental stewardship across the Johnson County community and advise the Board of County Commissioners on sustainability policy options.
All right, Mr. Aaron Otto and Ms. Julie Cairns from the County Manager's Office. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Just a little recap of how we got to where we are today. So May 11th, there was a committee of the whole discussion that talked about the formation of Sustainability Coalition. We called it a committee at the time. That was originally proposed by the chair in support of the board's established goals at their retreat earlier this year. The Sustainability Coalition was established for the purpose of encouraging environmental stewardship across Johnson County as a community and advise you as the Board of County Commissioners on sustainable policy options. The coalition will have up to 15 members appointed by the chair and approved by the board. The chair will also appoint a BOCC liaison, and the county manager will appoint an executive sponsor. We believe the coalition will be coordinated by the Sustainability Project Manager and Program Manager, Brian Alferman, who's here with us today, and the full resolution is what's included in your agenda packet. So next steps on approval, assuming approval of the board, the chair will consider appointments to the anticipated coalition and hopefully have its first meeting in early September with one of their first tasks to create bylaws. They will also make an annual report back to this board. Happy to answer any questions that you all might have.
Mr. Otter and Ms. Cairns, thank you for your work on this resolution. And obviously, it's a goal that this board has set to consider the sustainability and health of our communities. And I'm glad that this can be a real benefit to us by unlocking some of the talent and treasures that's already within our community to provide us those advisory services. I'm very excited about the opportunities that this has, not only to increase the economic circumstances within our county government, but also our residents, but also improve upon the quality of life by protecting our environment. And so I wanted to thank you all very much for your work and look forward to voting on this next week. Commissioner Allen Brand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing from this group of people and, just hearing people coming forward with, issues that they have in their land and losing land and, with flooding and different, erosions. And I think that we can learn from input from other people. So I'm supporting this. Look forward to it.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Otto, I will direct this to you, but if you want to pivot to I was going to say the county attorney, but the deputy assistant county attorney who has magically appeared. I'm sorry, you caught me by surprise. There was a question discussed previously that I believe the county attorney's office, the county attorney was reviewing the structure, functioning, activities of all boards and commissions. What is the status of that, and is this the model, or these two, are these the models that are planned for all of these other groups, except the statutory boards, I suppose?
Except the statutory boards. And I would defer to Ms. Trent, but I would say in general, this is the general structure, and we are still finishing up that project.
And when will that be done?
I don't want to say, since I don't have that information directly
Fair
from
enough,
Ms.
fair enough.
Trent.
Was there any consideration or discussion of including sunset provisions for these boards and commissions so that they were actively reviewed periodically?
I'm not aware of any, but again, I will defer that, and I will pass these questions on to her.
And that's fine.
Yeah, no, and they're looking maybe August, September, but bring forth that sunset to Chief Legal.
Yeah, so I have a number of detailed questions, so if, actually on both of these, so if Mr. Otto and/or Ms. Cairns would indulge me before next week, I would appreciate it.
I might just draw your attention to section 9.01, and it's in both resolutions, I believe. This says that this group will, as I mentioned earlier, make an annual report, but it also says that there's a decision by the BOCC on the continuance necessity of the group.
Correct, that's not a sunset provision, that's.
Correct. It gives you the option to review and
I
consider.
understand.
Yep.
Yeah, and oil, I think we would have that option regardless.
Regardless, yes, it does force the farmization. Thank you.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to clarify that this Sustainability Coalition is not redundant of our Sustainability Committee, which is an internal group that is made up of primarily department heads looking at ways and sharing across departments ways to save money and save energy. And so this would be a complementary to that, if I'm understanding it correctly.
You're welcome to, or I can.
Oh.
But
Yes,
go
so
ahead.
I think you've hit on a key provision by having similar staff being involved, the coordination that can take place there. But this group potentially will serve as a resource to the county internal effort, if you will. So the way in my mind to keep them kind of a little bit delineated, there's county government and county as an entity, and then there's county as a community. This is really bringing together key stakeholders within the county community to give advice to you as the Board of County Commission and make other things that you see described, activities you see described in the resolution. So they'll continue to work, and I think the fact that they'll be coordinated to a large extent because of the shared staff that comes out of DHE.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have some of the leading minds and engineers in this field for the world, let alone in Johnson County, and being able to utilize those resources for the betterment of our county is something I'm excited about. Commissioner Fast, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, thing that we had agreed upon that's not in here, that this would supplement, not duplicate, and in one way, I don't know if the chair would be considerate, we have the Food Policy Council, I've served on the air quality, we have, the solid waste, we have the county sustainability. I don't know if there could be, people from those different, or, what I mean, that they're, and I know you go to all, but you're still not, you don't go all the time, I think it's critical that this group knows what the Food Policy Council does, what the air quality does with Mark, and maybe one way to do that is you appoint someone, appoint someone from those groups.
I appreciate the suggestion, and I look forward to working with all of you when we talk about appointments to this board and to the next one. But I think some coordination and some education of our members is definitely in order so that they understand the resources that are available for collaboration from food policy or solid waste or otherwise, not to duplicate efforts, but to create efficiencies and frankly, exponential results by understanding what is each committee's lane and where they can be supportive. So I think a really good suggestion and appreciate it. Commissioner O'Hara.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Estimate of cost, staff time for this sustainability committee. I mean, we're all about consolidating boards to save money, and now we're expanding boards. So what's the cost going to be?
So as it says in the briefing sheet, we believe there'll be any de minimis costs that may come with having a committee, but from a staffing perspective, the way this is outlined, we believe it can be handled within DHE's existing resources and staffing on the Sustainability Coalition.
But there is going to be expenses. I mean, when you have staff attending these meetings, it is an expense. It is an expense for the legal department to go and analyze and figure out how to set this up. I mean, we have costs.
Yes, you have costs baked into the overhead of any department or any, you're just running this meeting, for example. So when you talk about net new costs, there might be a meal associated with a meeting after hours. That's what we were listing under a de minimis cost in that sense. But you're right, everything does have a cost in that sense.
Right,
Questions that bake
it
into
has
the
a
budget.
cost. So we are consolidating on one hand and expanding on the other. All right, thank you. Just wanted to understand.
Mr. Chair, can I make a comment
Go
very
ahead.
quickly? I just want to say that I think that's why Commissioner Fast asked to review all the other, because I didn't even know there was those committees, so I think that's why we're taking a look at everything.
All right.
So,
Mr. Otto, thank you very much. Ms. Cairns, thank you very much. We'll see you all next week on this item. And number 12, please.
Resolution number 054-23, consider the creation of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Coalition to foster an inclusive community where all people are connected, safe, and have a sense of belonging, and to cultivate a welcoming, diverse community where all people are valued.
Ms. Cairns, thank you very much for this resolution. Any report you'd like to provide?
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. The structure of the two committees are the same, so I'm not going to kind of replicate the background. I do want to acknowledge that the coalition will be coordinated by our DEI Program Manager, Kendra Neal, who is with us this afternoon. Of course, the full resolution is in your board packets, and I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Well, and thank you very much for that, and I look forward to Kendra's leadership there because it's been phenomenal thus far, and another hand in the wonderful Juneteenth celebration on Monday. So thank you for that. I can't tell you how much excitement I've heard from folks about this coalition, folks who are interested in being involved, folks who have suggested various individuals or entities to be a part of this. And I think it just really speaks to the strength of Johnson County, which is its people and the lived experiences and backgrounds that people bring to our county, and making sure that we can create a place that welcomes those folks, gives us an opportunity to, again, leverage that talent and treasure in a way that best serves the community as a whole and the county government. So I'm looking forward to this. And we will see it on action next week because I see no questions. And very good. Thank you, Ms. Cairns. All right. We will go ahead and close this meeting. We do have agenda review for PBC. It should be short, but let's give the clerk a chance to go ahead and start the next meeting.
Thank you.